How do I think the pyramids were built? To be honest, I have no answer to that question.
Scattered across deserts, buried deep underground, and hiding in plain sight, ancient builders left behind structures so massive, so precise, and so unusual that they defy everything we thought we knew about the ancient world.
And we're talking about red granite from Aswan. How did they bring it up here? We are here in a mountainous region.
These aren't just monuments, they're riddles in stone, surrounded by stories that never quite add up. And after decades of searching, experts are still chasing the missing pieces. Here are the world's greatest ancient mysteries archaeologists still cannot explain.
I don't know how they did it. All I know is they did it. I don't think anybody knows how they did it, how they lifted those stones. I think we're looking, again, at a lost technology.
Number 6. Hawara Pyramid and the fabled labyrinth.
When we think about pyramids, we tend to think of Giza, I think, and the Great Pyramid of Khufu in particular, but actually this is where it all began.
Herodotus swore there was a gigantic maze in Egypt's Fayum region that outshone even the pyramids. He said he had seen it with his own eyes, endless halls, thousands of rooms, and stone roofs so huge they could match the size of railway boxcars. The Greek geographer Strabo agreed, calling it a wonder on the same level as the pyramids, built right next to the king's tomb by the shores of the ancient Lake Moeris, what we now call Lake Karun, near the city the Greeks named Crocodilopolis. Both men's descriptions point straight to the 12th dynasty pyramid complex of Pharaoh Amenemhat III at Hawara. This pyramid was unlike the others built before it. Old Kingdom pyramids usually had their entrances on the north side, but this one hides its entrance on the southern face. Once inside, it was a deadly puzzle for anyone trying to rob it. Ancient engineers filled it with false passages, blind turns, and massive sliding quartzite blocks weighing around 20 tons each, designed to block the way. At the center was the ultimate prize, a single quartzite burial chamber so huge that it weighed about 110 tons. It was lowered into place and then sealed with even larger stones. In the late 1880s, British archaeologist Flinders Petrie managed to reach it. What he found inside told a sad story. Burnt wood, bits of charcoal, and fragments of bone, evidence that ancient looters had broken in and even set fires inside. Today, you cannot follow Petrie's path because irrigation canals have raised the water table. The entrance now lies about 16 to 20 feet underwater. So where is the incredible labyrinth that Herodotus described? When Petrie dug to the south of the pyramid, he found a massive platform made from chips of stone and the outlines of a rectangular structure measuring roughly 1,000 feet by 800 feet, bigger than the main sacred enclosure at Karnak. Down the center ran a wall from north to south, and scattered around were granite doorframes, broken columns, and shrines carved with the names of Amenemhat III and his daughter Sobekneferu. Strabo had said the labyrinth was adjoining the king's tomb, and this evidence matched that perfectly. Most of the finished stone had been stolen long ago, which explains why later visitors saw very different remains. Not far away, at Biamu, two huge pedestals once held seated statues of Amenemhat III. Petrie estimated that the statues were about 60 feet tall, though others dispute that figure. Either way, their size, along with the pyramid and the labyrinth, shows why Greco-Roman travelers were stunned by this place. In 2008, Egypt's National Research Institute of Astronomy and Geophysics, working with Belgian experts, scanned the site with electrical resistivity, magnetics, ground-penetrating radar, and more. They found underground patterns that could be walls or rooms, but the high groundwater made it impossible to be certain. Today, Nottingham Trent University's Labyrinth project is racing to save what remains. The water level, about 16 feet down, is flooding both the pyramid's interior and the supposed labyrinth site. Their mission is to scan, model, and protect it before salt, water, and time destroy it forever.
For thousands of years, this massive statue has been an object of both fascination and wonder. But even after centuries of study, the Sphinx holds many secrets that archaeologists are still trying to unravel.
Number 5. The Great Sphinx of Giza. The Great Sphinx of Giza might look like bare yellowish stone today, but in ancient times, it was anything but plain. Its face was painted a bold red, while traces of blue and yellow were found on other parts of its body. In the blazing Egyptian sun, it would have stood out like a massive, colorful sign against the desert. This enormous statue stretches about 240 feet from paw to tail and rises 66 feet high, all carved from a single ridge of limestone bedrock. Sitting atop its head is a small opening, a maintenance hatch capped in the 1920s that proves the head has been entered and examined in modern times. For most of its history, the Sphinx was buried up to its neck in sand. In the years 1817 to 1818, Genoese explorer Giovanni Battista Caviglia dug deep enough to uncover its front paws and reveal the dream stela of Pharaoh Thutmose IV. This 15-ton granite slab, placed there around 1400 BCE, tells how the young prince claimed the throne after clearing the sand from the statue. The rest of the body stayed buried until a massive excavation between 1925 and 1936, led by Émile Barrès, finally freed it. His team also repaired dangerous cracks, sealed hollow spaces in the stone, and placed iron trapdoors over unsafe openings. Most experts believe the Sphinx was carved during the reign of Pharaoh Khafre, who ruled from around 2520 to 2494 BCE and built the second pyramid at Giza. The evidence comes from the bedrock itself, which matches the limestone blocks used in Khafre's Valley Temple. The Sphinx Temple, located right next to the statue, is also part of the same construction project. This is why archaeologists firmly place the Sphinx in the Old Kingdom, rather than assigning it to some unknown prehistoric civilization. There are real openings in the Sphinx that have fueled centuries of speculation. In 1837, engineer John Shea Perring bored a tunnel behind the head. His drilling rods jammed 27 feet in, and blasting them free damaged the statue. That tunnel was not fully cleared until 1978. At the rear, a low passage at ground level was rediscovered in the early 1980s. It extends only a short distance into the stone before ending. The hatch on the crown leads to a short vertical shaft, which Barrès sealed with a metal cover for safety. In 1987, a Japanese team from Waseda University used remote sensing and reported unusual readings beneath the forepaws. 4 years later, in 1991, geophysicists Thomas Debicki and Robert Schoch detected a cavity under the left paw. Egyptian teams later drilled and pumped water into these spots in the 1990s, revealing they were natural cracks in the rock, not secret rooms. That finding has not stopped the spread of myths about a hidden hall of records beneath the statue, but no credible evidence supports it. There is also an ongoing debate over the weathering on the Sphinx. Some researchers argue the wavy, eroded walls of its enclosure were shaped by heavy rains thousands of years before the pyramids were built. Most geologists at Giza disagree, pointing to salt crystal damage, occasional heavy rain, and the effects of groundwater on softer layers of limestone as the cause. While this water erosion theory makes for exciting headlines, the surrounding temples and quarry marks tied to Khafre's reign still strongly support the conventional dating. Two famous details about the Sphinx are confirmed by history rather than legend. The missing nose was not destroyed by Napoleon's army. Historical accounts say it was smashed in 1378 CE by a religious zealot opposed to idolatry. The Sphinx also once wore a ceremonial false beard, added in later periods. Fragments of this beard are preserved in the Cairo Museum and the British Museum in London. Every part of the Sphinx has seen repairs. Some date back to ancient times, others to early 20th century conservation efforts, and modern restoration has been guided by precise stone-by-stone mapping from the ARCE-Leaner Sphinx project. The traces of ancient paint, the hidden openings, the unusual passages, the matching quarry scars, and the temples connected to Khafre all combine into a story that is already fascinating. The Sphinx doesn't need wild myths to stay mysterious. The real documented history is more than enough to keep it one of the most intriguing monuments on Earth.
This place was clearly a site of reverence and possibly somewhere where people would come for healing purposes at a much later date. I mean, the water rises up from the water table to create this island.
Number 4. Osirion at Abydos. Beneath the desert sands of Abydos, just beyond the Temple of Seti I, lies a structure unlike anything else in ancient Egypt. You approach the rear of the temple, expecting more fine limestone halls covered in delicate carvings, and suddenly the ground drops into a hidden world. Down there is a massive waterlogged chamber built from red granite blocks so large they feel almost out of place, even in a land famous for its monuments. 10 towering granite pillars, each close to 13 feet tall and nearly 8 feet thick, rise around a central stone island, perfectly paved and surrounded on all four sides by a deep water channel. The entire space measures roughly 100 feet by 65 feet, and lining its walls are 17 small cutout rooms. This hidden place came to light in the early 1900s. In 1902, archaeologists Flinders Petrie and Margaret Murray, working behind Seti's temple, accidentally broke through and found themselves looking into a strange chamber filled with water. Later excavations by Edouard Naville and Henri Frankfurt mapped it in detail, photographed the tool marks, and published a complete record in a work called The Cenotaph of Seti I at Abydos. Their findings confirmed that the chamber was part of Seti's temple complex, not some remnant from a lost, forgotten civilization thousands of years older. Inside, the craftsmanship is astonishing. Short staircases at either end of the chamber lead up onto the island, and above the pillars lie granite beams, weighing many tons. From the rear of the hall, a perfectly straight, stone-lined passage stretches for about 226 feet. On the walls, you see long inscriptions from the great funerary texts of the New Kingdom, the books that guided a soul through the afterlife. After Seti's death, later pharaohs continued to decorate the chamber, carving in the Book of Gates and the Book of Caverns. All the evidence points to it being built in Seti's time, in the 13th century BCE. His royal names are carved into the stone. Pottery found here belongs to the 19th dynasty. The religious texts match the theology of his reign. Most Egyptologists agree it is Seti's cenotaph, a symbolic tomb dedicated to Osiris, meant to feel like the underworld itself. Yet the way it was built is unusual. The chamber's floor sits much lower than the temple's main level. The blocks are on a megalithic scale, and the whole space is designed around water. This wasn't just decoration, it was deliberate symbolism. In the mythology of Osiris, rebirth happens on a mound of earth surrounded by the waters of chaos. Here, that image becomes literal architecture. The island as the mound, the channel as the cosmic waters. And the water is not from rain or seasonal Nile floods. When Petrie first entered, the basin was already flooded. Decades later, after the Aswan High Dam stabilized Nile water levels, the flooding continued. Modern hydrological studies reveal that the source is groundwater flowing from the desert west of Abydos, moving through the Cana Sand Aquifer. This fossil water sits under gentle pressure, constantly seeping up into the chamber. Tests have measured more than 34 feet of water beneath the paving of the island, with a chemical composition distinct from Nile water. Pumps can lower the water for a while, but it always returns. The sheer size of the blocks has sparked debate for decades. The granite pillars and beams were hauled from distant quarries, and shaping and placing them would have been a major engineering challenge. Yet Frankfurt's documentation shows clear evidence of normal ancient Egyptian stoneworking, careful measurement lines, sockets for levering, joints fitted with precision. There's no mystery about how it could be built. The puzzle is why it was done this way, on such a scale, and in such a location. Visitors in ancient times could reach the Osirion through the Osiris chapel inside the main temple, descending into what must have felt like an underworld, or they could approach from outside the temple enclosure entirely. This double access suggests it was part of a ceremonial route, perhaps for the king's cult statue to travel through scenes of death and rebirth. Even today, the main challenge is the same as it was over a century ago: the flooding. Monitoring shows the groundwater is highest in spring and early summer. Engineers studying the site are trying to map the flow paths beneath the structure, so any conservation work won't cause new damage. Until the water can be controlled, much of the Osirion remains inaccessible. We can map it, read the inscriptions, and understand its symbolic role. But to walk across that central island with dry feet is something only a few people have experienced since its discovery. Number 3. Zawyet El-Aryan Pit. Just 5 miles southwest of the Giza pyramids, hidden inside a fenced-off military zone, lies one of the strangest and least understood ancient sites in Egypt. Beneath the sand is a massive rock-cut shaft early explorers nicknamed the Great Pit of Zawyet El-Aryan. It is an unfinished royal monument, unlike anything else in the country, with features that still have no direct parallel in Egyptian archaeology. In the years 1904 to 1905, Italian archaeologist Alessandro Barsanti uncovered a sloping stone entrance leading down into a mysterious T-shaped structure. A long staircase ran from south to north, cutting deep into the bedrock. Oddly, halfway down, the stairway stopped at a wide, flat landing before continuing into an east-west chamber. That landing has never been fully explained, but it may have been part of the construction process.
Nothing like that had ever been found before, and although there are other very beautiful tombs in the Valley of the Kings, Seti's tomb is the most thoroughly decorated of all.
The chamber itself was never completed, yet its floor was finished with enormous granite slabs carefully fitted into the bedrock. Some of these slabs measured about 15 feet long and 8 feet thick, each weighing up to 10 US tons. This was already unusual, but near the western end of the floor, Barsanti made a discovery that still baffles experts: a huge oval vessel carved from a single block of pink granite, built directly into one of the floor slabs. It was about 10 feet long, 7 feet wide, and nearly 5 feet deep, and its lid was still sealed when Barsanti found it. What makes it even stranger is that there was no way to bring such a massive piece in through the narrow, descending passage. The only explanation is that it was lowered into place before the granite floor was completed and sealed in forever. Barsanti noted faint traces of some kind of substance inside, but it was never tested, and whatever was there is now lost. Archaeologists have no other example of a sealed, built-in granite container like this in any other royal monument in Egypt. From the surviving base area, we know this pyramid would have been huge if finished. Early surveys show it was planned to be about 656 feet on each side, putting it in the same size range as the Pyramid of Khafre at Giza. Barsanti's drawings also recorded a massive walled enclosure measuring roughly 1,526 by 1,378 feet. This matches the 4th Dynasty custom of marking out the entire pyramid complex, even if the main structure was still in the early stages of work. The owner of this monument is still a mystery. No official name was carved on the walls. Ancient worker graffiti refers to something called the Star of Ka, which could link the site to a short-lived king the Greeks called Bikaris, also known as Baka. Others think it belonged to a prince named Setka. Barsanti himself reported finding a damaged dedication tablet with the name Jedefre, the son of Khufu. None of these theories has been proven, but the heavy use of granite in the underground structure matches the style of early 4th Dynasty royal projects. Then, without warning, all work stopped. Barsanti returned to the site in 1911 and 1912, but after his death and the outbreak of World War I, no more excavations took place. In the 1950s, the site's dramatic desert setting was used by film crews, but in the 1960s, the Egyptian military took over the entire area. By 1964, the site was completely closed to the public. Satellite and aerial images show military buildings scattered across the plateau, and access has been strictly forbidden for decades. This means that most of the photographs and records we have are over 100 years old. Every detail we know comes directly from Barsanti's original excavation notes and standard archaeological sources. Whoever began work at Zawyet El-Aryan had a plan on a massive scale, mobilized huge amounts of granite, and was partway through building something extraordinary. And then, for reasons lost to history, they abandoned it, leaving behind one of the most intriguing, inaccessible, and unsolved monuments in all of ancient Egypt. Number 2. The Great Pyramid of Giza. In 2017, scientists used particle detectors to scan the Great Pyramid of Khufu and saw something no one had imagined. Hidden inside was a space roughly the same size as the Grand Gallery, now called the Big Void, sitting high above the main passages. No one has been inside it, no one knows its exact shape, and no one can say why it was built. Then in 2023, a tiny camera was slipped through a crack in the stones just behind the pyramid's original entrance on the north face. It revealed a perfectly cut corridor about 30 feet long, hidden behind the chevron-shaped blocks that form the roof above the entrance. There was nothing inside it, no carvings, no treasures, just smooth, clean stonework in a place no one knew existed. The rest of Khufu's pyramid is just as mysterious. When it was completed more than 4,000 years ago, it stood about 481 feet tall, and each side of its base measured about 756 feet. It was aligned so precisely to true north that it is off by only a few arc minutes, an accuracy that is almost impossible without modern tools. The smooth white casing stones that once made it shine in the sun are gone, but the massive core still weighs roughly 5.75 million tons, and the interior design makes use of nearly every inch of space. The first passage you encounter slopes down at about 26.5 degrees. It is tight, about 3.5 feet wide and just under 4 feet high, and it runs for 300 to 345 feet before ending in an unfinished chamber cut directly into the bedrock. This so-called subterranean chamber is rough and empty. About halfway down the descending passage, there is a hidden opening in the ceiling that leads into the ascending passage and the upper parts of the pyramid. Most visitors enter today through a rough tunnel hacked into the side of the pyramid around the year 820 by men under the Abbasid Caliph al-Ma'mun. But ancient Greek writers like Strabo described a real entrance centuries earlier, showing it was known long before that medieval break-in. As you climb upward, the cramped ascending passage opens into the Grand Gallery, which is over 153 feet long and nearly 29 feet high. The sides have shallow ramps cut with evenly spaced slots, possibly to hold wooden beams or serve some other unknown purpose. At the top of the gallery is the antechamber, a narrow granite-lined space with grooves for 3 heavy granite slabs that could be lowered to block entry. Beyond it lies the King's Chamber, a rectangular room made entirely of granite, measuring about 34.5 feet by 17.25 feet. Above it are 5 low, relieving chambers, each made of massive granite beams brought from Aswan, more than 500 miles away. These were placed to spread out the weight of the millions of pounds of stone above. The sarcophagus inside is larger than the connecting corridors, which means it was placed before the pyramid was finished. Like the rest of the pyramid, it has no inscriptions. 2 narrow shafts lead out from the King's Chamber all the way to the exterior. In the so-called Queen's Chamber, 2 similar shafts stop before reaching the outside. In 1993, a robot exploring the southern shaft found a small limestone block with 2 copper fittings, nicknamed a door. In 2002, another robot drilled a hole through this block and found another block behind it. In 2011, a micro camera revealed red markings made by the original builders on the back of the first block, with yet another sealed barrier beyond. Below, the rough lower chamber feels like a project that was abandoned. Above, the big void and the newly discovered corridor prove that there is still unexplored space inside. The pyramid's real entrance is located about 59 feet above ground level on the north face, placed slightly off-center with extreme precision. Outside, 2 huge boat pits were built for Khufu's funerary ships. In 1954, one of them was opened, revealing a cedar ship 143 feet long, held together with wooden pegs and rope lashings instead of nails. It was rebuilt and, in 2021, moved to the Grand Egyptian Museum. A second dismantled boat was also removed from its pit in 2021 for restoration. Excavations in the 1990s uncovered the workers' village and cemetery southeast of the pyramid. The evidence shows that the pyramid was built by rotating crews of well-fed, skilled laborers who lived in organized housing, worked 3-month shifts, and even received medical care. Graffiti found inside the upper chambers includes crew names like the Friends of Khufu, directly linking the monument to the pharaoh. In 1872, Wayneman Dixon found 3 small objects inside one of the Queen's chamber shafts: a copper hook, a stone ball, and a piece of cedar. The wood vanished for decades, only to be rediscovered in 2020 in a Scottish museum, stored in an old cigar tin. Radiocarbon dating showed it was from between 3341 and 3010 BCE, older than Khufu's reign, likely reused from an earlier structure. Even with modern scanning technology and tiny cameras, the pyramid still holds its secrets, revealing new features while refusing to explain them. Number 1. Serapeum of Saqqara. Beneath the desert sands of Saqqara, a long, sloping ramp carved into the rock pulls you down into the earth. With each step, the air turns cooler, the light fades, and the stone walls seem to close in. The tunnel bends into darkness, and then the shadows break to reveal something staggering. On either side sit enormous granite coffins, the size of delivery trucks, each carved from a single solid block, resting in their chambers like giant locomotives parked in a silent underground station. This is the Serapeum, the burial place of the sacred Apis bulls, worshipped for centuries as living manifestations of the god Ptah in ancient Memphis.
Well, some of them, the granite in the Great Pyramid comes from more than 500 miles to the south.
Perhaps the most famous collection of ruins in the entire world.
For around 1,400 years, from the New Kingdom into the Ptolemaic period, these colossal tombs were built and filled with care that still amazes us today. What hits you first is the sheer size. In the area known as the Greater Vaults, 24 of these sarcophagi remain, most carved from Aswan granite or even harder diorite. Working either stone is no small feat today, let alone thousands of years ago. One coffin measured in the 19th century was about 12.5 feet long, 7.5 feet high, and 7.5 feet wide, with a lid over 3 feet thick. Together, the box and lid weigh around 68 US tons. Only 4 of them bear inscriptions. The rest are bare, their edges sharp and their surfaces polished so flat that they seem like the work of machines, yet they were shaped by human hands. Getting them down here seems like a mystery, but the evidence left behind makes the answer surprisingly straightforward. The main gallery stretches about 1,150 feet with a parallel service tunnel. When French archaeologist Auguste Mariette entered in the early 1850s, he found the ancient builders had left behind hints, grooves from double rails in the floor, marks left by rollers, and 2 large horizontal wooden winches tucked into niches. The method was simple but brilliant. Rollers, levers, and winches moved the sarcophagi through the tunnels. Once in their burial chamber, workers filled the room with sand, slid the coffin into position on top of it, and then removed the sand slowly until the massive box settled perfectly into place. No cranes, no steel cables, just physics and manpower. That still leaves the question of precision. Granite and diorite are extremely tough, but evidence from sites like Giza suggests how they did it. Flinders Petrie's famous Core No. 7 shows the spiral marks left by copper tube drills used with abrasive quartz sand. It's slow, exhausting work, but it explains the clean lines and flat planes seen here. Experiments have proven it's possible, given enough skill, patience, and time. The Serapeum itself didn't start out this big. The earliest burials here were simple stone tombs. In the 13th century BCE, Khamwaset, son of Rameses II, created the first underground galleries, later called the Lesser Vaults. Centuries later, under Psamtik I, the greater vaults were added, and in the Ptolemaic period, the long, winding corridors were extended to the size we see today. Above ground, pilgrims approaching the site would walk along a grand avenue lined with between 370 and 380 Sphinx statues, probably built by Nectanebo I. The spectacle began before anyone even set foot underground. As for its purpose, the evidence is clear. Stelae, inscriptions, and even 2 untouched burials found by Mariette confirm it. This was a cemetery for the Apis bulls, animals honored as divine beings. Over time, the burial rites evolved, but the tradition of laying these sacred bulls to rest here endured. Most of the coffins are empty now.
That's how there's no more mummies in them. Someone pushed it aside and took out the contents at some point in antiquity.
They're treasures stolen by ancient looters, but their scale still carries weight. Thanks for watching. See you in our next video.